Welcome to the 180 podcast, brought to you by BTFU, and we are at the motel Fireball in room 305. Very different to where we've been over in Bali. We're about to get to the check-in. We've got lots to talk about. We've also got a lawyer coming on today's show to talk about all things R360 and the decision that Peter V'landys has made over the last few days. So that's coming up, but most importantly, if you do want to celebrate and come down here, there's a worldwide tour that's about to start at this motel, boys. Aaron Macy and Rennie Matua, 7 p.m. tomorrow. Come and check it out. This is cool, this place, isn't it? What about this? Coming from the 7-star villas that you booked us in Bali, Rennie, to more of a humble beginnings back in this beautiful setup here.
This is a Rennie setup.
This is my element.
Really?
This is what I need. You know, a little bit of a waterbed, a mirror on the ceiling.
You love a waterbed, eh?
Mirror on the ceiling. What's that for?
I don't know. There's a bubbler there.
The bubbler. You love a bubbler too.
The bubbler.
Yeah.
The
bubbler.
Just the whiskey
Have you ever
bubbler,
popped a
the
waterbed
Fireball.
before?
The what, sorry?
Have you popped a waterbed before?
No, I haven't.
You haven't done a good enough job.
Hasn't that enough? But how have you had a waterbed?
I've never had one.
Yeah.
This is your place, apparently.
Right,
I don't know. It's
okay.
not mine.
Well, yeah.
That was
Well, here we
Bali.
are.
Let's talk about Bali.
Let's talk
first.
about Bali. It was fun, wasn't it? It was great.
It was a good time. We were actually good boys over there. And we trained twice a day.
How were the runs? Did you enjoy the runs?
I don't run, all right? Just for all the listeners that follow Braith and they're taking the piss, I'm not a runner. And that's what happens on the big jobs, you
I
know.
think they know
I've
you're
got-
not a runner because you didn't run when you were
Well,
there.
I'm not a runner here either. I need a knee replacement, double groin.
I've seen you run plenty of times for
reconstruction,
certain
two
things.
ankle
You're not a runner at all.
Well, we've got a lawyer here, so maybe we can establish where I'm running from.
But it was like, we had a bit of a crack over there.
We did. We ate well. We trained hard.
Yeah.
We drank pretty hard, but
Yeah,
we were
we-
in bed by fucking 10 o'clock.
Yeah, we're getting old, aren't we?
Well, if I had a wingman, I would have stayed out later. I had a bit of,
Is that
I had
what-
a bit of a glow
Is that
on
what
me.
you're blaming on?
No,
You're going to blame us for your...
No. I was happy to go home early, but if I had someone with me, it was on.
Well, how come a few nights you
There was
didn't
one
come home
night.
with us?
There was one night I came home late.
Hang on, no. Let's clarify something here. If you had a wingman, there was 2 nights. Actually, one night you just you left me hanging because I wanted to watch the Super League Grand Final, right?
Yeah.
And I said to Rennie, I couldn't get KO over there because you got to have international.
need
And
VPN.
I couldn't work it out because I'm not good with technology. And he had KO on his phone, and he said, "Mate." So the game was on at 1 a.m. in Bali. And I said, bro, I need to know you're going to be home. I want to watch the Super League Grand Final. Willie, who I manage, is the coach of the whole KR. I can't miss it.
He'll be there for sure.
And Rennie's like, mate, 100% I'm going to be there, right? So I get home, sitting in the villa, trying to keep myself up till 1 a.m., waiting for him to get home. Doesn't get home. Messaged him, mate, where are you? He writes back, fuck you.
No, I didn't.
So not only did he not turn up...
I wrote back, who's this?
Yeah, who's this? So I ended up having to ring a mate of mine who on FaceTime, and I watched it all on FaceTime. He put his phone in front of the TV back here, and I watched the whole game on FaceTime.
Well, Braith,
Wait.
it was my holiday too, right? So
No
if
shit.
I want to
Wait.
stay out, I'm going to stay out.
So where were you?
Ulu Cliff House, shout out to Josh, and then went to an after party, and then went to another after party, and I got home late, and there you go.
I got on the plane.
No, this was, I had Sunday off. So
Did you meet any females over there? Because I was
Why are we going
asleep
there?
by then.
Did you find love?
Well, mate, I have to ask the question.
the exchange rate was there, but
You know what? We should push for Rennie to be the next Bachelor.
no way.
Yes.
No chance. Someone's messaged me to go on that twice.
Or Married at First Sight?
I've
Yeah.
had
Actually,
to,
that'd suit you
to
better.
audition.
I reckon he'd be
no
good.
fucking
No, I'd like to
chance.
see, you know what?
Sponsored by Fireball.
No,
Yes.
I know what you are. Love Island.
Oh, yeah.
Over
40s. Over 40s.
Let's establish something here. I'm Love Island. You're single, and all I've seen in the last fucking week is you on a boat or you out to dinner. You should be on Love Island.
That's true. It's a good point.
Talking about me.
I've dropped 5 kilos, a little bit
well,
to
you
go
can tell
before
us
we
that
go
every
there.
session, every
No,
time.
actually, how's the
Where have you
pebble
lost
come
it
back?
from?
Is he the Rock yet?
No, I come back a boulder.
The Rocky Boulder.
Yeah, you kept looking in the mirror and going, just keep getting bigger, mate. Just keep getting bigger.
Actually, talking about
Actually,
Rocky Boulders, there's someone in this room that's been putting up some photos.
Yeah, old Tommy gun. Fuck
Oh,
me, what's doing?
yeah.
Is that for your grinder account or what? I tell you.
Tommy's the man behind the scenes here. He did the 75 soft. I mean hard.
Nearly died.
And he's looking
Ended
good.
up in fucking the emergency
But your
room.
selfies, geez, maybe we can pop one up on this somehow.
Quickly,
No?
we did. We went to a place called Bamboo. Shout out to Bamboo.
Yeah.
I'd never been there before. I'd driven past this place so many times over the years, and I had no fucking idea it was a gym. You went in there. Oh my! I was
No
like,
wonder you couldn't find it.
yeah,
he
but
wasn't
I
looking for
train
a
around
gym,
the
that's
corner.
why.
So I go past and just go, look at these wankers. Like, just look like a bit of a fucking influencer hang out, mate. The gym was outstanding. It had a recovery pool, food good. We did this session with the trainers. I reckon I haven't felt that kind of head noise since 04 preseason.
That big.
It was
He was in some
fucking
pain. Oh, we
tough.
all were, to be fair.
But we had about 10 tequila shots the night before.
Yeah,
but we
didn't
still
help.
got up and got it done.
We did.
How did Big Sean pull through?
Yeah, good.
The Jesper just follows
No,
Brace
Shawnee-
around
Shawnee-
with the camera and laughs at his jokes.
Yeah, Rennie and Sean. If you could think of two total opposites in this world as human beings, like Sean's regimented.
What?
This is insulting. No, but Rennie's easy going, cruise. He trains in his own sort of time and his own level, and likes to relax and all that. And
I don't mind a
he's
sleep
not really
diet.
too planned, and as I said, regimented. He kind of, which is Bali, and in Bali, I'm with you.
Yeah.
But Sean's very, strategic and plans his sessions, and analytical and detailed. And I've got him in the same villa, and I was like just the trying to balance it all out.
The
like
meat and the sandwich?
meat and the sandwich.
Yin and yang.
Yuck.
Well, it didn't really
Imagine
matter.
being the meat in between that sandwich. Yuck.
I'll tell you what
Anyway.
sandwich was good. That fucking Wagyu slider from Yuki.
Yuki.
It was the best thing I'd eaten. Best thing I'd eaten.
For the viewers and listeners that do follow us, a lot of people, if you go to Bali, Bamboo is the place to go. And Rennie just said it, fitness, just the vibe, but the food, recovery, awesome. The guys there are great. Carla, a Greek restaurant, was unreal. Yuki was sensational.
You got Mason over in Norlook?
Mason was really good.
Tasia.
Tasia's a bit fancy.
I'd never been there. I'd never heard of it.
Very fancy, but like beautiful and great sunset. And if you got a partner and it's a bit of you're trying to find a wife like Rennie, it's probably a place to take him. What else?
I think next year we should do BTFU on tour in Bali.
Yeah.
Go do a golf, because the golf in Uluwatu is not too
It
bad.
is, the golf's great. So anyway,
No, we won't
that's
be playing
enough of
golf.
that. Let's get to the actual podcast and get our next guest on, Osman Samin. Let's bring him in. He is Australian criminal and family lawyers. Yeah, so we've got Osman in. As I said, he's from Australian criminal and family lawyers. And really, what I want to talk to here first is Rennie and I, while we were in Bali, Osman, we were in Bali, and we were quite shocked by the stance the NRL took in terms of the 10-year ban for players and agents who sign or agree terms and conditions with R360. Our first reaction was like, wow. I think, firstly, I want to say that I love Peter V'landys and his leadership here, Ren. I love what he's done for the game. I've loved his aggression and his willingness to put our game first at all times, and has been a complete success. And I'm a fan of him. And when I saw this, I'm like, okay, that's pretty powerful. Knowing what I know too, working on 360 behind the scenes, what R360 is, and on this podcast, warning people of how the severity of it, even though Peter was playing it down there for quite a while. I was most surprised, Ren, before we get to you, Osman, just the reaction of the fans. You would think in a situation like this, the fans would say, good on you, Peter. Defend our code at all costs. We're behind you. Fuck R360.
Yeah.
But it hasn't been that way,
No,
right?
it hasn't. And we sat there for the last couple of days, sort of scrolling through socials, and I'd say the majority of comments I've read have been supportive of players. My initial reaction was I thought Peter V'landys came out a little bit too aggressive, and that could have got people offside or got under their skin a little bit. I do support what he does and what he does for the game, but I just thought the reaction from the fans was overwhelmingly in support of players, which surprised me big time.
All right, Osman, thanks for coming on. And this is a pretty different environment to what you used to. You only work around the corner here. I suppose I'll come to you with, as a lawyer, your reaction to the stance that Peter V'landys and the NRL have taken, and just give us your thoughts on it first up, and then we can sort of go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Can I pick up on the reaction, both yours and the fans on social media? My reaction wasn't a great deal different. And then scrolling through social media, reading a lot of the comments, seems to be the immediate reaction of fans, spectators is, well, how is that legal? And everyone wants to know, well, is it going to hold up in court? Can it be challenged? And they're all really important questions. And I think the answer to that question at the moment is that there isn't an answer, but there is a whole heap of concern about the way it's been introduced. And if it has, in fact, been introduced. Now, what I did this morning is I actually printed out the media release because I think it's helpful to talk about it by reference to the actual media statement.
Yep.
Now, as a lawyer, the first question that I have about the policy is, well, what is the mechanism through which it will be introduced? Is it through the contract? Is it an amendment to the contract? Is it a policy? Is it an amendment to the NRL Constitution? At the moment, all that we have is a media statement and nothing more than that. And in order to determine something from a legal standpoint, you've got to actually look at the mechanism and what the mechanism says in terms of the actual policy to make a proper determination about whether it can hold up or not. But can I say this, and I want to deal with it by reference to the actual media statement. Just reading through it, I think the questions that I immediately have, and probably the most important one, is who does this actually apply to? You see, the statement reads, any NRL player, and then goes on to who negotiates or signs or enters, but just pausing there and picking up the word NRL player. Well, is that a strict application of someone who's currently under contract in the NRL? Or does it cover anyone who actually plays the sport of rugby league? So, for example, what if you're off contract next year?
Yeah.
You don't have a contract. Are you still considered to be an NRL player?
Yep.
So if you've got player X who's finished their contract, they're no longer subject to a contract. Is this policy suggesting that if you were to sign a contract with R360, come back at some certain point in time, that you're not allowed to return? Or is it solely applicable to players who break a contract?
Yeah.
But when you pick that up, it even gets a bit more complicated. Let's say you're a sort of fringe player and your current club, there aren't many opportunities. You're sitting behind a few other players and the club says, look, we don't see a future here for you.
Yep.
You've got a year to go on your contract. Go and see what your options are and we don't take an issue with it. You go knock every other NRL club's door and you get no opportunities and seemingly R360 is interested. Well, your club's allowing you to leave. You're then leaving because you've got no other opportunity. Does that mean by making this decision, you're now subject to this clause and subject to a 10-year ban?
So it's clear there's a lot of grey areas here, right? And okay, so I think what they're trying to do is, I think probably stop situations like Zach Lomax, where he's actually contracted for another couple of years at a club. He's a big name player, and he's looking to go to R360. But what that actually does is, because of what they've said here that's so broad, right, it actually impacts everyone, no matter what position they're in. And that's where they're going to have problems here. So a lot of people are saying, is it a restraint of trade? And what if the players fight this? Because that's essentially what's going to happen at some point. I think this is far from over. Like from this statement, and he's not really going to, I suppose, last the test of time. It's not going to be said, that's it, we're done here. So I suppose from a player's point of view and from the fans wondering if a player challenges it, what do you think?
Well, I guess the first point is it actually a restraint of trade? Now, typically what a restraint of trade is, let's say you're employed for Company X. Company X has in your contract, if you leave for this amount of time, you're prohibited from working for a competitor which is within X distance of our place of business. That's a typical sort of restraint of trade. This is quite the opposite of that. They're not saying we're going to stop you from going elsewhere. There's obviously contractual implications if you are on contract and you're breaching a contract. That's a very different scenario. But I'm talking about, let's say you're an NRL player who's off contract. They're not saying you can't join with R360 and we're going to stop you for doing that. Well, I don't think they can.
Yeah.
This is a little bit different though. This is, we won't take you back. But the we won't take you back aspect is a bit more complicated because the NRL operates effectively in a monopoly. It's not an economic monopoly, but effectively, if you're a rugby league player, there's nowhere else really that you're going to play within Australia unless you go to rugby union or some other code. But there isn't an alternative, and that I think is the complicated question. But I think ultimately, my opinion is that most likely it is a restraint of trade, and then without getting into the nitty gritty of the law. What the law looks at is whether the restraint of trade is reasonable.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it becomes very problematic for the NRL because in terms of it being reasonable, the way that it's drafted, how long, 10 years is a bloody long time. It's effectively your career.
But they would have got a lot of legal advice themselves before making this statement, let's be honest. So what do you think would have happened there? Like, if you're the NRL, what does it look like they've done? What advice would they have got? And are you surprised they made this decision?
Look, it's hard for me to go behind the scenes and sort of or make comment about the legal advice. Look, can I say my take on it is this is an immediate response, and it's probably one that's potentially come from fear. Sorry, and I don't think the legalities of it have yet been well thought out, and that's indicative by virtue of it just being a statement at this stage. I don't think proper thought's actually been given to the mechanism of how this will be introduced or how it will apply. But can I say, even just talking about that reasonableness for a moment, if you read the scope of the terms, it's not even if you sign. It's if you look at for example, the player management prohibition. It talks about advises a player in dealings with or the signing of a letter of intent or playing contract. Like that is an extremely broad sort of concept. Like for example, if you have one of your players who turns up and says, look, someone, reached out backdoor and said, X, Y, Z, do you want to join and can we have a chat? If you were to apply this strictly, you're effectively giving him advice about a letter of intent or potential contract agreement, and you're possibly subject to it.
Which is big because I'm hearing that there's already players that have signed letter of intents, right? So, and they've obviously got agents. So right now, if you're, just say Ryan Papenhuyzen, this is all, this isn't factual, so we don't know. This is all speculation, alleged, right? So, alleged that Lomax and Papenhuyzen have signed letters of intent. They're done, and by this statement, like allegedly from this statement from the NRL, if they've signed these already, and the agents have been involved in this, well, they've already got 10 years.
I guess the question is whether it has retrospective application, because if you've signed a loan agreement before the NRL's put out this statement or introduced this policy, the question is then whether you're captured by it. Now, I think it's really important because you might look in the statement, and I think the third is a discretion to review or lift. So even if it did retrospectively apply, like for example, let's say Lomax has signed the contract, and he then approaches the NRL and says, look, at the time I signed this, I wasn't aware that you were going to introduce a 10-year ban.
Which is fair call.
They might review it and say, well, look, on a case-by-case basis, which is what they're suggesting that they will do.
It's all case-by-case, isn't it, by that statement?
I know. But even that's, for my part, practically, that's problematic. Because we talk about, your big-name players. Like, can I say, for example, if you had Nathan Cleary who thought, you know what, my partner's overseas, I want to go over to Europe for a couple of years, so Penrith have allowed me to leave, I'm going to go over, and he goes over in 2 years' time. Nathan Cleary says he's going to return to the NRL. I highly doubt the NRL is going to say, well, no, look, Nathan, I'm sorry, here's 10 years and we'll never see you again in an NRL jersey.
This is the whole thing, right? And, Ren, well, Sonny Bill did it, right?
Yeah.
Sonny did it. Swaley, he's gone to rugby union. What's the difference, right? Swaley, he wants to come back tomorrow. What's happening? mate, he can sign for 10 clubs. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like, you want to go to Super League, that's okay. You can go to Super League, that's fine. You can go to Japan, you can go to the south of France. Yeah, sweet. But you can't go to R360, which was apparently a Happy Meal or a Cocoa Pops cereal box. So, it doesn't make sense, this reaction to something that was so insignificant, apparently. And again, like on this podcast, I made it known a long time ago, this is real. And you've only got to look at Live Golf and the model they've had. And I'm not going to go over it again because if you're a listener and a watcher, you know what I'm talking about. But what do you reckon, Rennie? What's your thoughts?
The first thing I'll say is that I've been in the Downing Centre a few times, and you should be a lawyer as well, because that was all going past my head. No, look, I just think.
Well, you were sweating over there.
I was thinking, am I back in court again?
You're bringing up bad memories.
Downing Centre's right there.
Take me now.
Just give me my toothbrush, I'm off. Look, I just think, from what I'm hearing, there's a lot of holes in what they've put out, and there's not a lot of fact behind it, or they won't win in a court case. So V'landys has sort of come out with an aggressive statement to try and scare everyone away from even entertaining it. I want our game protected.
Yep.
I want our game protected. I just don't feel like that was the... Sorry, there's a vacuum going off in the background.
We are in a motel Fireball in room 305.
Yeah.
Who knows what that vacuum's doing?
I think what you're saying is like, we really appreciate you coming in and give us the breakdown. It's what I don't think I've heard from anyone else's podcast what the implications are, and by the sound of it,
can I just say, Ren, this is something no one's really spoken about, and I think I've probably got to, because I know what's happening. So the TV rights deal's up, right?
Yeah.
At the moment. So I know for a fact that V'landys is either in talks with Nine and Fox, insinuating there's interest from elsewhere, whether it be Netflix and all those streamings, which I don't think is actually a thing. And hopefully it lands definitely with Fox, obviously with my commitments there and my loyalties there. But I'm thinking at this point too, when this has reared its head, mid-conversations, mid-negotiations, and you're talking about the likes of Reece Walsh, you mentioned Nath Cleary, Payne Haas being a big one. They're thinking we cannot have our biggest stars leaving our game right now in the middle of negotiations with TV rights, talking billions of dollars, because if this actually kicks off R360, we lose players, because the rights deal would go down with the amount of superstars that left.
That's what Peter's trying to... That's why he's been.
I reckon he's protecting that as well. Would that make sense to you?
It does, absolutely. And if I was negotiating a deal now and potentially have stars leaving, I'd be frightened. I'd be terrified. But I also think that's why that distinction is so important between contracted players and players who aren't under contract. Because, I mean, it's a liberal world. You can choose who you work for. You can choose where you go. And I don't think any court's ever going to say, well, for the rest of your career, whether you're on contract or off contract, you're stuck with the NRL. And
that's why the fans have reacted the way they have. That right there. Because, and again, we said it last podcast, if you're a tradie, or whatever you are, whatever industry that you're in, right, in Australia, freedom of choice, you talk about restraint of trade. If you are anyone on the streets working any job around here, we're in the city right now, and if someone comes to you and says, I appreciate what you do, and I want to give you double what you're on now or triple what you're on now, what are you going to say? What are you going to do? How are you going to react? And what right does your current employer have of saying, no, you can't do that? And you know what? I'm going to ban you from ever returning. I don't think it'd be feasible in the real world, right? Which is what's going to come into question here. And again, I don't. This isn't an NRL bashing for me, because I love them and what they're. I actually applaud Peter in his strong stance and everything that every decision. All through COVID and where he's got the game now, they've invested. More so than ever. When we went through COVID, we had no investments, we had no money in the bank, we had zero. Now he's bought properties up in Brisbane, and he's the growth of the game. It's the highest rating. It's the most attendance records, and you only had to watch the grand final, best semi-final series of all time. And I love his aggression, but I'm just thinking, I even love his aggression here. But I don't think. But my point, I think what we're talking is that going to hold up, and is it actually?
What's your gut feeling as someone who's been around the game forever and who has players that are within the game? Do you think this is are we overreacting, or do you think this is a real absolute threat?
I don't think Peter would have made this decision if he
Yeah.
didn't think it was a genuine threat.
Okay.
You know, I know for a fact that it's happening.
Yeah.
And I know for a fact that because, mate, I've had someone try and reach out to me, but I haven't entertained it or even spoken to anyone because I thought something like this may happen. And with my standing in the game, and I didn't want to jeopardise my career in any way. So I didn't even entertain it. But if I'm the average agent who doesn't have the job I've got in the game, and, you know, I've been lucky enough to, you know, set myself up through hard work, but playing footy and working in the media, they don't have, like, these agents don't earn the money that I would earn, right? This is their life. They're like car salesmen in a way, or real estate agents, where every fucking sale matters, mate. Like, that's their livelihood. And they've got this opportunity where they're getting paid, like, not even taking money from the player. They get paid separate on the side. So it's not impacting the player's salary. And they're getting lots more money, and they can't even go near it. They can't even touch it because now they're restrained as well. You know, but, you know, like, you look at it that way. You've got to look at it from all these angles, mate. And like, I'm lucky in my job that I can knock that back, you know, but I appreciate these guys, you know, the good agents, because there's a lot of Derricks. And, you know, one of them in particular, he's... Not him. I'm not even going to name him. He's a Gronk, but he knows who you are. You know you are. And he's in the media at the moment. Poor Tigers again. We'll get there later. Yeah. So, but there's so many ways to look at it. I think this is why, because we are the hard-working country, and a lot of these kids come from nothing, mate. You know, like, a lot of them are earning a couple $100,000 a year, you know, which is good money, right? But they've started from nothing. They've got to support their families. We've spoke about this. You know, the Polynesian kids and all that sort of, you can talk to that.
Yeah.
Supporting your own family, sending money back home. You know, a lot of the time you're only seeing half your contract, even a third of it. You know, you know, and you get opportunity like this, and it's like, nah. So all the hard work you've done your whole life to position yourself. You said it. Your family taking you to under.
Since you're our 4-year-old, you know, driving around New South Wales, rep games, club games, volunteering. You know, we do this for more than just ourselves. Yeah. You know, we want to make and provide as much money as we can along the way.
This is also in a situation where your career is quite limited when you compare it to other careers. For example, as a rugby league player, like, when you're knocking on the door of, 30, and this is sort of the extremes, but 35, 36, like, is the sort of, you know, the end of it for most players, and for a lot younger than that. So you've only got a limited amount of time to make as much money as you possibly can, and you've got another code who's offering you more than double what you'd get paid in the NRL. You potentially got, you know, tax havens, which you can.
Well, the tax havens, right? That's another thing which we spoke about. But owning your own IP. Now, one thing that a lot of people don't know in you know, the punters, is that, just say a Cameron Munster, you know, I get a company come to me and say, we'll give you $100,000 for X, Y, and Z, right, for him to represent our brand, be an ambassador. I cannot say yes until I go through the NRL, which is a process where the NRL need to approve of it. It goes through a process at the NRL. They make sure there's no conflict with any of their sponsors, yada, yada, yada. Now, a lot of deals get knocked back in rugby league because of the conflict with the NRL and their sponsors and ambassadors and all that. This R360 are also giving the players their own. So they can do whatever they want. They don't need to approve of any sponsorships. So they'll earn whatever they can off it, live wherever they want. And you talk about tax. So there's so much, like, so what I'm getting to here, Ren, is that, will this make the game now? I'm assuming the RLPA they'd be pretty invested right now in making sure they leverage this position, because I would say now that the players would want, if they're going to be stopped from making more money, is the cap at the right price? Are they getting enough for Origin? Can they not have their own brand and sponsorships and all? This is going to raise its head. Is this going to change the landscape of rugby league?
You can't argue that this is very beneficial for the current player, that this R360 threat is going to force the NRL to innovate or, you know, create some more potential earnings for these players. I've always been baffled why players can't earn more money outside of the game, and you've just explained why they can't, because the NRL sort of pretty much own their IP. So from a player's perspective, if I was in this current situation where R360 is circling, I think this is very beneficial and for the RLPA to be able to represent their players and create more revenue for a player.
Absolutely. Look, can I draw maybe this comparison? Compare the response from rugby union. And look, can I say, Braith, I absolutely adopt what you say about Peter. I think he's been incredible for the game. I think the NRL's currently in better shape than it ever has been. So I don't want this to seem like a criticism.
No. But this is more just like, we're kind of just, a lot of people are just not sure where this is going to land or what's actually happening. So this is more what this is about. And you know, as much as we love him, and I want you to continue with the comparison with the union because that's a good point. But I think it's just more bringing it to light. It's not shitting on Peter or the NRL. It's probably just us predicting what may happen moving forward, and that's pretty much what we're doing. So he's going to have some challenges, Peter. No matter how strong and great he's been and love his work, he's going to have some challenges.
Yeah, and I think for all of us here, we're all. I mean, you guys were ex-NRL players. I'm a huge NRL fan. I've been following it since I could barely walk. So. More than anything, I want to see the NRL do incredibly well. But sorry, the comparison I was drawing is this sort of R360 is sort of taken over the previous feud. I don't know if you can even call it a feud, but the whole players potentially going to rugby union and rugby union players coming to rugby league, and that's been in the media off and on for a period of time. But rugby union hasn't banned anyone. They've said, well, if you're playing for R360, you're currently ineligible. Depending on what further information we get, that might change. Okay. But let's say this ban does actually hold up. In practical terms, if you were a player who'd gone to play for R360 and you come back and NRL says, nah, that's 10 years, well, isn't the automatic position you go to the other competitor? Yeah. You go to rugby union.
Yeah.
So it's not the be all end all, and rugby union would be licking its lips, going, "Well, God, if I get Payne Haas, Papenhuyzen in 2 or 3 years, and whoever else that might be, Lomax, it'd be huge for them."
Yeah, no, there is potential there. The union didn't take a stronger stance, and that could benefit them here because you're right. Like if you want to take the R360 approach, and you've got so many avenues in Japan, south of France, and European rugby. You can even play here in Australia if you wanted to, but I don't think that's a preference at the moment. But there's so many opportunities to earn even more money on top of the money you're going to earn. And to be honest with you, like I am big on my players or anyone I represent, or even because of the way I live, in looking at business opportunities. Or you got to treat yourself as a commodity, as a business, as an entrepreneur these days. Look at Reece Walsh and the money. He's okay, right? Because he's going to probably be the richest rugby league player that's ever played that game because of what he's been, because he's a good-looking dude, he's a great player, but he also leverages YouTube and his Instagram and all that. Now, he's in and amongst that. He's the modern-day rugby league player who's leveraging that position. He's one that can afford to stay because he's got so much money. But the other guys don't have that. But you got to look at it like an entrepreneurial business. As you're a player now, you want to set yourself up for life. You don't want to be retired like a lot of players I played with, and even myself, with cost of living and whatever you go through, and you don't own your own house, or you don't have investments. And that's what we always say. And the NRL tell the players that too. They try and they have people come in and make sure these players are looking after their finance and setting up their families and making sure they don't finish up and they're depressed and going through anxiety because they haven't been able to put themselves in a financial position that they should have. And here we are with the opportunity of a lifetime possibly, and we're saying no. You know what I mean? Like there's a bit of a contradiction there. Am I right?
No, you're absolutely right.
Absolutely. I think that look, there's no doubt Peter's come out with a very strong stance and he's tried to nip it in the butt, but I don't know that it's going to work, and I think potentially it backfires. But the other way to look at it is the alternative stance could have been, if you're a player on contract and you breach your contract, we won't tolerate it, we'll take action. But for everyone else, well, you're at liberty, but we have the best competition here, and you want to be here, and we'll focus on bettering the game.
All right, thank you, Osman Samin from Australian Criminal and Family Lawyers. Really appreciate your time, mate.
Cheers,
out of your day from Rennie's second home around the corner, and just giving us a bit of clarity on the kind of situation and what may play out in the coming weeks, years, who knows. But thank you very much, mate.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks,
Cheers.
Legend.
All right, we're back. And yes, we are changed. We've got our Fireball outfits on, and we thought it was most appropriate being in the Motel Fireball Inn here in the City Room 305, which is on fire, so to speak.
Can I just notice there's something different? I have a shirt under, you have a shirt under, our man.
Our man, the Greek.
The Greek, get it.
I'm the only one not sweating either because you dumb fucks have left your shirts on.
I'm absolutely fine.
If we were in Bali, right, not on a podcast with cameras, you would no way have a shirt on right now.
Are you kidding me? I had a shirt on most of the time in Bali.
Liar.
Don't you start with not having a shirt on.
I didn't wear a
did
shirt in
not own a
Bali.
shirt.
I'm proud of it. Why
Yeah,
not?
see,
He does.
I'm
I reckon Brace wears a
boulder.
shirt on NRL 360. It's about it.
No, I wear a suit on NRL 360.
Well, sorry, that was suit and shirt.
Yeah.
Well, I couldn't fucking take a shirt off next to you, you prick. You're in the fucking good nick.
Mate, just work hard, stay positive.
All right. That's what he pretty much said to me every day. Look, it'll come off.
Mate, I said, mate, keep working hard and it'll strip off because that's what happens. And I know a lot of guys, no, don't give up.
No,
a lot
I'm
of
not.
guys watching,
I'm not.
you train hard and then when you get older, after a month, you don't see the results, so you stop. But you got to give it 6 to 8 weeks, and it just goes bang. Anyway, enough of that. Now let's talk. Quick reaction. I don't want to because that was quite a long, segment there with Osman there. Quick reaction just from us about what went down there.
Aaron?
Mate, I thought it was, for me, it was super interesting. I love what you said, and I was highly intrigued. Obviously, as everyone knows, you're also a player agent, and you are fortunate enough to have that, but. For, as you said, the car salesman or the real estate agent, that is their only bread and winning. I reckon that's huge. Yeah. And I think you look at the other thing that people don't realise, everyone keeps talking about the mass salary. Mate, owning your own IP in today's world, let's just say this Rugby 360 kicks off. Let's just say it is the new biggest sport around the world. It's huge like Live Golf. Imagine the Nike sponsor or what those sponsorships could be worth.
I think what
you could end up in more like you look at some golfers and that they earn more in sponsorship than they ever do in prize money.
Yeah. I think it's been something I've thought about for years, especially when we played. It was about players potentially owning their IP because there were companies in the past that wanted to sponsor myself or yourself.
Yeah.
There was opportunity, but it was always stopped by the NRL or was investigated. So if they can be a little bit more lenient around that, what I got from Osman as well is there was a lot of holes in what the NRL statement has put out. I think it was sort of interesting to see used to go back and forth, to be able to have a proper discussion, which I haven't seen on any other platform about where this is going to go, and it's fucking massive.
It kind of looks like a bit of a knee-jerk reaction, as you said. Got advice? Well, it's just a statement at this point.
Yeah,
and as he said, there isn't a mechanism to say, well, how do you apply it?
Yeah,
how is that application work?
There's a lot. It is the off season. So players are off and doing their own thing right now, but I think there's a lot more to play out in this from every angle. NRL 360.
What about the
you can imagine all Buzz and Reedy, which who I've spoke to over the last few days, and even my producer, and we're just going, imagine this story broke mid-year. The content we would have been able to create and the information we would have been able to get, and that's why we've provided this today because there's not many opportunities to do that.
I'm tipping Gus and Lockie Galvin wish it did.
Gus took. He was thought it was an overreaction, and Gus knows his stuff, right? So, there's so many different takes, and I don't want to go too much further on this.
Just quickly on it. If we lost, say, 30 of our best players theoretically, which in theory could have, just say Reece Walsh was one that did go. They offered him astronomical money. How different's that grand final without Reece Walsh in it? Yeah,
and that's why Volandis has taken this stance, and that's why I say I don't mind what he's doing and the aggression and the the protection of our game, because our game's the greatest of them all, and we want our game to survive, and we want it to be as good as it was this year. And they are simply doing that. The NRL, they are concerned.
But by no way are we against either way.
That's what I'm saying.
It's an open discussion here.
It's an open discussion, but we're kind of just given the reality to where this could lead and where it could land, and it's far from over, and the legalities of just the statement, which is all it was, is not going to end any of this.
Yeah.
And that's what, Osman said. It's quite broad.
All right, enough on the Rugby 360, but I do want to talk about player change. There's lots of talk. Jonah, Munster.
Yep.
And now it's even surfaced that there's talk that Billy Slater could take over Bellamy, and Bellamy could move up to Queensland, I think it was, or...
Yeah, so there's been a lot of chat, and I've seen a lot of journos putting on their Instagrams and, saying Jonah signed a 4-year deal here and these are the clubs that are interested, and a lot have been wrong. Canberra, just to clarify that, they pulled out, which was very interesting because Don Fern has been still acting like he's in the hunt for Jonah, I've noticed, but they pulled out 3 or 4 weeks ago. There's a lot of fans who are wanting him to go there, and I thought it was, this is only if he left Melbourne, because Melbourne is still well and truly want him there. But right now, so just to clarify something, and I think it's been clarified, he's off contract. He's not employed by anyone right now.
Oh, right now, so he's completely off contract.
Go anywhere. There's no loan even. He either signs with Melbourne, he either gets a 1-year loan and goes back to Melbourne and signs a long-term deal, or he just signs somewhere else. So
who's in the hunt?
Well, I mean, I don't want to be too specific, but
that?
I'll say this. The ones that have been reported, Parramatta Cowboys in Melbourne are right. But there's someone else that you'll probably find out over the next few days that could surprise a few people.
He's coming to the Chalks.
How, from a player's perspective, and let's put Jonah aside here, how would you feel being loaned out for a year? Like going to do a pre-season.
But the whole idea of it, man, the only reason we said the loan is because he's not going to get a start.
He wants to play first grade. I get that.
You got man of the match.
Let's take Jonah out of it, though.
Yeah. Well, the loan. Well, Harry Grant did it, right? And Harry went to the West Tigers and played under Madge. Madge had the same systems, even though they didn't do so well. He had the same systems as Bellamy. He was under Bellamy, so Melbourne knew that he was going to a good coach. He was still going to learn the same systems there, come back into there, and look what the career Harry's had.
Well, there you go. Madge made him.
Yeah, but another thing, right? If you get loaned out, what if you enjoy that club so much and then you want to stay there?
Well,
and then you've got another contractual.
It's too bad. You got to go back unless that club thinks, you know what, if you're happy there and we've had success without you. Yeah, there's ways there's things that could change.
Yeah.
But the likelihood of that's very minimal. But Jonah's got a big decision now. The stuff with Craig, I have heard that they're definitely after Billy Slater. That's.
And is this for next year, the following year?
So they're giving Craig 1 more year at Melbourne. So Craig will coach next year, and that will be his last.
That will be his last. It's definitely his last.
Said that for the last 5 years.
I'll just give you my opinion on the situation. But I would say, if you said to me, your life is on the line.
Which way are you betting?
What are you doing? I'm telling you right now, he's got 1 more year at Melbourne. The rumours there, so Melbourne, I believe, would be after Bellamy and Riles. Billy and Rilesy. Rilesy, I think, is too happy and he's got his stuff there at Para. I can't see him going back, although I know that they want him. And then there's Billy. Will Billy give up the origin? Well, can he do both, or does he want to be a full-time coach? That's the decision for Billy, but they're the two candidates.
Quick question then, just as an opinion piece. Do you think they may have stuffed up by not maybe letting Bellamy go and taking Rolsey earlier?
It's all
But just
hindsight.
It's an opinion.
That's all hindsight, right?
In hindsight,
but I think, I think after this year and the way it sort of, they lost the grand final, they've just thought, we probably, he's been amazing for us. But to maybe we do need change, you know, and maybe how can you question Bellamy? They got to another grand final.
He's got the one of the best. He's got one of the best records.
But
ever.
I do think that they're just going we've both respected each other here. We've both had a lot of success with this partnership and this team, but you know, there's time for change. Now, what was most surprising to me was the Josh Hannay situation. It's like, you know, signs with the Gold Coast with the understanding that if they do get Bellamy, then he'll be assistant. Did you know that, Red?
I didn't know that.
So
assistant.
So
he wouldn't
it's a
oversee
head coach.
it.
It's a head coach.
Hang on, say that.
I thought
what is
that,
it?
So what's happened is Josh Hannay, when he signed with the Titans, he signed a contract with the understanding that if they got Craig Bellamy, Bellamy would get the top job. So Bellamy now has 1 year left at Melbourne, which he will play out or coach out. Then he goes to the Titans, which is a big chance I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Hannay gets pushed back out.
He gets demoted.
After he's just got, what if the Titans kill it next year, right? And you've got a young coach who's evolving, who is with the modern age, who is heavy on developing players, and you know this is his time. And they go bang next year out of the gates and have a great year, and then Bellamy comes in. Like I'm telling you, I'm telling you. I spoke to a few journos yesterday about because we landed from Bali, and I was like, this can't be true. It's true. So he has Hannay, who I think is going to do a great job there, and I've spoken to him since he signed there. Like, why would you sign a deal with that clause?
Did he maybe known that clause was?
You have to. You have to.
Of course. You read your contract as you sign it.
And I look at it like this: as much as I respect Craig, mate, it's kind of like Wayne in a way. Like, mate, you have been a legend for so long. You've done how would you feel going into just going to the Gold Coast? The guy would have that much coin. Like, I'm not, not that that's, but like he'd be so financially secure with the money he's been paid from Melbourne forever. Like, how are you feeling going in and going, oh, see Josh, after 1 year?
He's got a big
just
yacht.
come sit in the co-pilot.
Like, I don't know if I'd be comfortable with that.
Pilot moved back into the co-pilot.
Yeah. But anyway, that's all. That's that situation. Jonah's one. So Jonah pretty much what's happening right now is we're getting all offers and we're putting everything on the table from in terms of 1 year, 4 years, Melbourne's. They're all coming in from the clubs now. And over the next sort of week, we'll just go, okay, where are we going to land here, Jonah? What's one thing with us, with Jonah and all our players is we're very much a team. Like, we treat it as a team. So we all make decisions as one.
Yeah.
And we look at the positives, the negatives, the development, the opportunity. It's all about developing as a player and as a person. And it's all about opportunity at the highest level and how much opportunity you're going to get. And that's the issue we've had at Melbourne, is that the development was outstanding and you couldn't get a better development anywhere. But opportunity. You don't get many of them in life or at first grade rugby league.
Yeah.
He played in the semi-final and got man of the match and then never played again. Like that. Think of that ever happening ever in any club with a player in the history of the game. Try and think of that.
And at the same time, but that was a great opportunity because it's probably put his price, his value
Melbourne
through the
made
roof.
the mistake of when Jerome first went down of not playing him and not playing him.
Yeah.
When he was right to go and had done his apprenticeship.
And you and I
because
said
what
that.
it's done now is it's put thoughts in his head. Well, what if they're not going to play? Because it could have cost him a grand final. And I said this to Melbourne. Them not playing him when Jerome went down, if they'd seen more evidence of what he produced in that final against the Bulldogs over that 3 or 4 week period, they could have went into the grand final knowing and relying on Jonah, having him on the bench. So when you had Ezra Mam coming off the bench, they could have had Jonah coming off the bench because they needed that flair, youth, exuberance, and X factor. And I couldn't say that leading in because it looks like I'm being biased.
Well, I actually said it. I said it in the preview. I made the biggest mistake.
And because I know the kid. I know
and then it comes from you. And you told me a long time ago, and so I've got to watch him so closely.
Yeah, and I honestly think Melbourne do actually to own that, and they think that they made a mistake there.
Yeah.
But what it's done is it's sort of made Jonah think, do they believe in me here? Am I going to be a 7 here? Jerome's a 7. What, they're going to put Cameron a fullback? Does Cameron want to play fullback? So, Melbourne have put themselves in a position here that's going to make it really hard for Jonah's decision. And he loves the joint. But he's got some some tough decisions to make.
And Munster, you see,
Well, Munster, he's there. Like, he's not going anywhere. The whole Perth thing is only if
Rennie.
Rennie, it's time.
It's on.
Lock me up.
Hang on.
Throw away the key.
Yeah, the Munster thing really depends on Jonah's decision, you know. Like, if Jonah stays in Melbourne, then, you know, Cameron's a chance of going to Perth when they launch their.
And then you got Sua Falong as
Mate,
well.
there's so much going on. Mate, Melbourne have got themselves in a bit of a spot, and I think it's going to be so interesting to see how it all plays out. Even all of them, all that we have. Ryan Papenhuyzen, were they planning for life after Ryan Papenhuyzen? Is he going to, because we'd heard he'd allegedly sign with R360 or in terms of an agreement. Now that may not happen with this new Philandy situation. You know, even Lomax. You know, were Parramatta planning on life after footy now that he'd signed or allegedly signed?
So on our last pod, you were quite adamant that he'd played his last game.
Yeah.
And Parra, do you still think that's happened, or is that backflip
this changes things now because he's got a decision to make. Like, he was probably going thinking he can come back and not being banned for 10 years.
Yeah.
So now if, you know, that may change. But then, you know what, Parramatta might go, well, you know what, we thought you were going. We've planned for life after you now. You know, you can go if you want. You know what I mean? Like, this.
Yeah.
And if Parramatta release him, right, then it comes back to, well, if they release him, Lomax is off contract, which means, you know, why should he be restricted if he's off contract now? He's not leaving a contract because in terms of, you know what I'm saying?
It's a mutual agreement.
If it's a mutual, this is what Osman was saying. The lawyer, if it's a mutual agreement now, the club goes, oh, mate, you know what? You can go now. We're happy for you to go.
Yeah.
Why does he deserve 10 years out of the game if he's been given his, you know, no other club can probably afford to pay him what he can now. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? This is so murky.
And I'll tell you one thing people don't realise. I'm about to turn 35, and it's rugby league is almost the opposite to any other working place in the world. As a human in a business or a business person, you only start to make money and become grow in life when you hit your 30s, 40s, 50s. Where the NRL, you make all of your money. Your career actually ends where everyone else's real career, like your prime of your career starts from. It's crazy. You know what I mean?
And just on the flip side of that, which again, just to finish on a positive for the NRL, is that Peter's right when he says, mate, we've developed these players. We've given them opportunities. We've created the pathways for them to be who they are. And then just to go see you later to a rival, you know, so I can understand that too, right?
Yeah.
You can understand that too. I think we've had enough on that. But I suppose to finish up the potty, let's talk about the Pacific Championships, Ren, which is the only games.
No, there's
games on this weekend.
There's the Saturday game is Fiji and the Cook Islands. So that's I think they're in their own sort of separate tier of champs. PNG's the other team. But just this game this week, the Toa Samoa versus New Zealand. Have you seen the team list?
It's crazy, eh?
It is the most stacked Samoa, and giving critters out as well. Like, you go through these sides.
Are you so just to quickly touch on the market, it's $1.70 new the Kiwis, $2.15 Samoa.
You look at the front row challenge, like James Fisher Harris v Josh Papali'i, Moses Leota versus Payne Haas. Like that in itself is a fucking battle you want to see. I can't wait for this game. Just being in camp with the Samoan side and like obviously being a half caste, you know, it's really hard to explain what it meant when I first went in and growing up as an Australian but being proud of my Samoan heritage. To see what the game's done with the Pac champ, well, in the Pacific, especially, you know, people have referenced Fafita and Taumalolo when they left for Tonga. They beat Australia in that game. And then it's just started this wave of players in their prime going to represent Samoa. And we won't go down that path, but this game this week, like, it is the most stacked Samoan team I've ever seen. Should I put up a bet?
Yeah, and then
do a prediction for us.
You do a prediction, and then I'll give a two-horse race.
Yeah, I'll give you. Yeah,
we'll get to that.
Hang on a sec. I'm going to go Samoa to win, and I've got my man Jerome Luai linking back up with Brian To'o on the left edge, I believe. So I've got To'o for any time try scorer.
I want to give you a little rap as well, actually. because the amount of people that came out that I've seen since the grand final and said how good is Rennie's footy brain. It's weird how they always say footy brain, not brain, but footy
IQ.
Footy IQ. Your assessment of that grand final was so spot on. And
The left edges?
The left
I think that
edges.
was pretty... I should just take the rap.
They take the rap,
and,
mate.
and you tip Brisbane. And no, honestly, look, it was your synopsis of that game was just so spot on. It absolutely
I
nailed it.
appreciate that.
That's why he's here, because he's the man.
There you go. So I've got Luai linking back up with my man Tor for anytime try scorer. I think the Samoans, it's a lot of these kids have grew up in New Zealand, or actually most of these teams grew up in Australia. So I've got Tor to score anytime, Samoa to win.
And I just want to give one rap to. He's playing his last game, Kieran Foran.
Yeah, Fozza.
Yeah, the Foz. I want to give
Love him.
because at the GF they had all those all the like the retiring players.
I sat with him at the GF.
and he was a big there was a massive roar for him. And
Mate, he's been
He stood the
such
test
an
of time.
animal. Like
I think
what
he's
he's
yeah.
put his body through, mate. Like there's
Yeah.
no other half I don't think that's ever played a game that's got us deep into the line and copped the building like he has.
He's a tough man.
You know,
and he's even
maybe
his
besides
body,
our man here, but like
the way his body is like, and the way he's still turned up every week and has done. He's playing. Congratulations to him. I sat and watched the GF with him and talked to him quite a bit now. Actually, he's a champion because he's doing some work with us at Fox, and I think he's going to be doing a bit.
What do
with
you
us
talk
next year.
about, you and Foz? You share some stuff on socials, don't you?
Yeah, we do. We got a little group on socials. Me, him, and
do you mind disclosing?
Justin Horro, me, and Kieran Foran. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm not disclosing that. That's not for information. Now, to our Unibet specialist, Aaron Macy, who has been on fire at the moment at the right time with the carnival.
Yeah.
We got the Everest on the weekend, which is huge. Now, you're tipping against Carling Rising, which is interesting. I did see that this morning on your Unibet racing podcast. Now, with it being this time of the year and whether you're a punter or not, it doesn't matter. It's the Everest, and you're either going
And
or you're
Caulfield,
watching. And Court. Oh, well, that's huge racing, right?
This is where it heats up. I will say, talking about different chats, we've obviously got the BTFU chat. And about 6 weeks ago, I was just getting an absolute
You
roasting
were.
from my man here.
Because you were
Mate, these tips.
You
But-
were having an off. It was off season. It was
Also,
raining.
As I said, wet tracks, shit horses.
Yeah.
But when I said, please be patient, I'd say at the start of every episode, wait for good tracks, wait for good horses.
Less bally horses.
Yeah,
Too
that's
bally.
it. Well, I said that was my thing last week.
So you've been okay. Let's just cut to the chase. All right, you've been in form, which is good, and we
Yes.
love that. All right, and everyone's happy now. What do you got for us this week?
I'll just give two.
Give two.
So watch the previews up, the racing previews up, and I won't just and little Tommy, who I do the show with, has been tipping a heap of winners as well.
Yeah.
I'll just give them probably my two best, and then I'll mention the Everest. Caulfield race 7, number 1, Apocalyptic. We found the Caulfield Guineas in the last week. He's Autumn Boy's the best horse, but she, I believe, is the best filly in the country. I think she'll just win barrier 4. Only thing that beats her.
Pretty
is
short
Caulfield.
though, right? So
it's
you
even
into multis kind of thing. Is
No,
that what
no,
you're
no.
thinking,
And then I think my next, it's each way, I'd say race 5, number 11. It's in the Kosciuszko. We'll give our man Volandis another rap. This is
Yeah.
something that he's done with the bush horses. Clear thinking. I think she's a genuine group horse that's getting a race against bush horses.
Yep.
Flying first up. She's around $5 or $6. Get the backer each way. I don't think she'll miss a place. And then going into the Everest, I'm out there tomorrow. I am so excited for it. They
Yeah,
do the Sweet
it's a great
Caroline.
day.
Mate, they do Sweet Caroline as they go out there. The whole play, you'll hear it from here. It
Yeah.
is that bloody loud.
I was there last year. It was the best day.
At best.
Best
So,
day.
now, Zachy Purton, absolutely love him. I think he's one of the best. He is so bullish on this horse, Kaying Rising. I wouldn't be surprised to see it win, but I don't think it's going to get the sort of pressure. Like, this is going to be a high pressure race. And I'm going with another horse. I'm going with the sticking with the family, though. War Machine each way. Drawn well. I think it's
Good horse, War
it's
Machine.
number 5. Oh, mate, it just keeps going from strength to strength. And I think to win this race, it's 1,200 metres. I think you want a 1,400-metre horse.
Well, I spoke to Zach because he's good mates with my business partner Justin, and we talked to him quite a bit over in Hong Kong. And I actually went and watched the trial and went and had coffee with him after it. And he was everything he said is the truth. He said, Kane Rising, it's definitely wasn't the best trial. He said he couldn't give it. He could have given it a little bit more, but he said it's definitely a little bit out of shape and overweight. That was a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
But he expects a big improvement with Hayes training him over in this period between then and tomorrow. So, yeah, I mean, we're going to find out how big of a superstar it really is tomorrow, but I wouldn't be surprised either. Like, if it did get rolled, I was more confident, because my business partner's obsessed with the horse and sends me everything on the socials and because he's mates with Zach. And watching it from here overseas, I thought this thing's home. But then since it got in that trial, there's a lot of doubt over it. Yeah.
Well, it has, shifty.
Anyway, that's enough of the racing. Rennie's starting to fall asleep. That's it for the BTF podcast. Bit different today with not as many games. And, of course, here at the Fireball Motel in room 305. Come down tomorrow again. Come down. Where are we? What street is it again? Castle Ray Street. There's from 7 p.m. There's a party down here, isn't there?
Yeah.
Come at
Brave's getting the fire extinguisher out, shirt off.
We'll be down here in the afternoon. We'll come have a look a bit earlier.
By then,
yeah. We don't know if we'll still be here by then.
It's all right. You've got Osman's number if it goes pear-shaped.
Enjoy your weekend.
Bye.
You win some, you lose more. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.